welcome to Nostalgia Goggles. I'm Chris, also known as Retro Gaming Nerd, and so I'm a mad hipster. I think you can kind of tell. I don't even know if people use that term today, but I feel like I kind of identify with that. And back in the day, I feel like I was way worse than I was now, because one of my favorite games of all time was Super Mario RPG. I have the Super Nintendo version, but I don't want to dig it out for this episode. But with that being said, with this being one of my favorite games of all time, it was very, very, very hard for me at the time to hear that there might be a game that is equal or better. And a lot of my friends said it was, and that game was Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. And, that's kind of the thing that sucks about being in your own head, or your own ass, is how I was, is that you never really gave this game a chance. I didn't give this game a chance. I played it a few times and I saw familiar enemies and I saw it like Paper Mario for the 64 and I just thought, oh, it's just another Mario paper game, so it's nothing really special. And I think that I'm wrong. I think that I am absolutely wrong. And I think that this episode of Nostalgia Goggles is a perfect example of why you should try things and sometimes just shut the hell up, give them a try, because sometimes you're wrong. When I mean you, I mean me. Well, let's get right into it. The story of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door begins in the seaside town of Rogueport. Rogueport is a sleazy town built over the ruins of an ancient city, and within those ruins is the Thousand Year Door. The Thousand Year Door is said to contain an incredible treasure, and while on vacation, Princess Peach stops in Rogueport and finds a treasure map. She sends the map to Mario, but is kidnapped by the mysterious group called the X-Nauts before Mario gets there. It's then that Mario learns that to open the Thousand Year Door and find the treasure, he has to get the Crystal Stars. With help of Goombella and other colorful characters along the way, Mario sets off to find the treasure and rescue Peach. So with that being said, the story itself is really just amazing. It sounds very simple, but it turns into this very big mess of just all written glory, I guess. I don't want to go too deep into it because I talk about it throughout and within the presentation, but I think that the story does an amazing job and really shows that the people that were making Thousand Year Door knew what they were doing with not only an RPG, but a Mario-based RPG, and it takes a lot, and it has a lot of surprises as well that a Mario RPG hasn't really taken in a long time. To me, I feel like this one just does a really good job at what it does. That being said, I've said my piece, so let's move on to the gameplay. Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door is a Mario-style RPG, which is very beautiful to think that that's a thing that I can describe as. Mario has his own style of RPG, which back in the day, back when it was just Paper Mario and Mario RPG, I never thought that this kind of style would prevail, and it really hasn't technically, because Nintendo refuses to continue Paper Mario in the way that it is and anything else. Hopefully this changes thanks to people buying these two games. But the way that these RPGs work is very interesting, because yes, it's still turn-based, but it's turn-based with a twist, being in the fact that with well-timed button presses and also directional movements as well, kind of like Mario RPG, it will allow you to do better attacks or more attacks, and I just absolutely love how this game does it. I love Mario RPG, but I have to say that Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door does an amazing job with the variety of it. You have multiple party members like any RPG, and each one of them have a vastly different way that they use the controller, such as how they control the thumbstick, how the button presses work, and I just think that that works out very well, and I'm absolutely in love with it. It makes battling super fun. Now, this game is very interesting because I've never talked about Paper Mario, but in Paper Mario you only have two partners, which is different than Mario RPG and many other RPGs, but I think that it really works out very well. And I think another thing that's interesting about this game is that with the well-placed button presses, you are also able to dodge or at least take affront of the attack that the enemies give you, and I think that that is really great. All in all, when it gets right down to it, the RPG mechanics are great, but I think the thing that makes this game really great is just how you are able to traverse the overworld, and also upgrading the weapons and abilities that you have, and using your partner's abilities, because they have abilities as well, that allow you to traverse the overworld, and I think that I just absolutely love it. I love exploring the overworld in Paper Mario, and I really sometimes don't. This is one of the games that I feel like I can come back over and over again to find new things. I didn't even find everything in this one, but when it gets right down to it, there's things to collect, like the shine sprites, the star pieces, and so on and so forth, that I just absolutely love just picking up and getting, and I think that all in all, it makes for a grand experience gameplay-wise. It's a little bit more than what you would expect from an RPG, and creativity that is here is amazing, and I can see why people are upset with the state that Paper Mario is in, because this is just grand. From within the battles and outside of the battles, this game does a really good job. I think the only issue that I do have sometimes is the platforming, but then again, I feel like that's just any Mario RPG's issue, which is funny because you would think that platforming would be something that's easy, and none of it is definitely the game's fault 100%. I just might suck. Oh, and speaking of traversal, because I'm terrible at keeping place, one of the more interesting things about this game is that this game plays with the paper aesthetic. I'm going to get more of that in the presentation. The reason why I bring that up here, though, is because you actually are cursed by treasure boxes. When I say cursed, I mean air quote as hard as you can, cursed. Because you are now allowed to turn into a boat, turn sideways, wrap yourself up into a kind of tube that allows you to go under things, a paper airplane, and yada and yada. You're actually able to do that in this game, and I just love that. It's not the greatest sometimes, especially I suck at the paper airplane. It's functional, and I think it's more doable within the remake, but you know, yeah. I think another thing that also should come to mind is talking more about the nitty-gritty with this game, is that the remake is different than the original. I feel like the remake gives you a little bit more leeway. The enemies, or boss health specifically, is a little less, and I also feel like there's a lot more leeway in the button presses that you need to take, kind of like Mario RPG, of where, yeah, it's gonna still be rough if you're not used to it, but it'll definitely be something that is easier to get used to on the Nintendo Switch version of it. I think another thing about the Nintendo Switch version that I like to bring up is that the way that the controller is a little bit better for me to press the buttons. Now, that might just be a preference of modern controller over GameCube. I'm not saying that there's a problem with the GameCube controller, it's just I have a preference for the Switch Pro controller. It's just a button feel thing, it's more of a personal feeling, but I do like that, and I also like how it is on the Switch, so it's able to be picked up and moved, and I think that that's really great as well. Adding on to the quality of life things that I've been talking about, there's also the hints that are also better. And last but not least, let me talk about the lifeblood of this game that makes it majorly different than most of the Mario RPGs, and I'm really surprised it took me this long to talk about them, but they are the badges. The badges are kind of the lifeblood of this game, being your special moves, being your special abilities, allowing you to have a little bit more health, allowing you to do specific hammers and jumps, allowing your partner to gain more health, allowing you to have less of a chance of getting hit. The badges are brilliant within this game, and going back to the remake side of it, the remake allows you to have the older music within the badges. The badges, I think, are just great to have, and I think the greatest thing about them is it allows you to customize your Mario, which, if you know me, that's one of my favorite things. How you select your badges is how your Mario and partner sometimes will feel, and I think that that's really great. And last but not least, for real this time, the level up system is great as well, kind of coming back to the Mario RPG idea of where you're able to use your health, your flower power, and now this time you're able to upgrade how many badges you're able to carry, and I think that it's really cool to have a balancing act between that. I think that the gameplay is super solid. I absolutely love how this game works. So with that being said, let's move on to presentation. Can I just say that when it gets down to the original presentation of Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, it's already beautiful, it's already standout, it's already awesome, it's already something that I can't recommend enough. And then they decided to put it into the remake, and I absolutely love it. I think that there might be some issues that people have with the remake, especially since it is quite literally shiny and more glossy looking than the original, but I don't know. I actually really love that. I think the thing that's interesting about this Paper Mario game specifically, no matter which version of it, is that Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door is kind of what got the iconic Paper Mario look. See, in the original Paper Mario, he looked close, but this one kind of made it more stylized, and I really appreciate and love that. I think the thing is, with the presentation of this game, it also definitely shows and is not afraid that it was on the GameCube back in the day by having a lot more sprites in the overworld, and there's just this show of technical power that could not have happened on the Nintendo 64, and I know that it probably did, but I feel like from the beginning, of the moment that you hit Rogueport and you are swarmed with X-Nauts, I feel like that would have made the 64 chug like no one's business. So I think that this game definitely does a really good job at showing the scale of what the GameCube can do, and I think it's really cool to see that return as well, and see that happen multiple times throughout it. Another thing I want to make of note in this game is that I think that the music of Paper Mario is super awesome, but I also see where the future comes in with Super Paper Mario. The music that comes from this game definitely feels like it inspired Super Paper Mario. Of course, they're the same franchise, but like sometimes game soundtracks do not carry over. And with that being said, I absolutely love the original soundtrack, but once again, I have to say that I absolutely love what they did with the new one. It adds a little bit more of an intensity and a little bit more texture, if you will, to the soundtrack that already was there, because the other soundtrack was really good, but I think that adding the instruments and also just, it feels like it's more in the universe, is, you know what I mean? It feels like it's, I don't know how to describe it, but when you hear it, you might know what I'm talking about. I just really love what is there, and it's not like they've changed too much. It just feels like they've upgraded and enhanced what already was there. So it's not saying that the original music's bad, it's just I like what they did with the remake, which is how remakes should be. They should be improving and not replacing. Another thing that's great about the presentation is that these characters, man, these characters, I almost was crying at the ending, because no matter how you look at it, you're done with your journey. There's no spoilers there. Your journey is always done, and you're always going to have to leave behind your characters in RPGs for the next one, unless you're Kingdom Hearts. Debatably, you can argue with me on that one, but my point still stands that most of the time in an RPG you have to say goodbye to characters, and this one was the hardest to say goodbye to. I absolutely love every single one of them. I absolutely love how this game presents itself within the writing. I love the humor that comes from this game. I am just in love with this game. It's interesting because at the beginning of this episode, I brought up that I was a hipster, and I brought up that Mario RPG was one of my favorites, and it was hard to get over that. And the reason why it's so hard to get over it is because this game does something vastly different, and that is the way that it is written. It definitely feels more like an RPG, and it feels like how a Mario RPG should be. It handles itself beautifully, and once again, it's something that I'm going to repeat, and that is, I see exactly why people are upset with the state of Paper Mario today, because this game just did an amazing job from beginning to end. It hooked me. It had me caring about the narrative. It had me caring about a computer. It had me caring about my partners. It had me caring about a little bomb boy on a train. This game had me caring about almost everybody you've interacted with, and that is crazy. Even the best RPGs don't have me caring as much as this one does, and I just taken aback. I love this. I would absolutely love to see Nintendo come back to this style of RPG for Paper Mario, because it's just grand. I could not wait for the next chapters, and I feared and dreaded the conclusion because I had to say goodbye to these characters. I know that it sounds dramatic. I could just turn the game back on and do it again, and that's what makes this great, is that I'm going to have that feeling for a long time. The way that they did this is great, and I cannot put in words how great this game is. So, at least to the writing standpoint, and I think with that being said, none of this matters if you can't get your hands on this game. So with that being said, let's move on to the accessibility. So Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door only came out for 2 consoles, which is the GameCube and the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch version is the market price as of today, which I can definitely recommend, because the GameCube version is going for $70 to $50, which realistically is the perfect middle ground for you to just buy the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch version has many differences, and it makes it a little bit more accessible to play. So if I had to recommend one, I would, but it's still a very passable way to play this game. Either way, I can't recommend this game enough to just go and check out either version. So with that being said, let's move on to the goods and the bads. I love this game. I love almost everything about this game. I love how also this game worked with its localization. I like how this game kind of built upon what was already there. What I mean by that is that this game is closer to the original one while also adding more to the world. And I'm more or less of talking about the remake, but the remake itself does that, where it keeps it close to what the original was while adding more context, and I think that that works out super well. And I think that that's what makes this game worth playing today, and I think both versions are definitely worth playing today, but if you're looking for the more authentic version, the remake might be the way to go. With that being said, though, the original isn't a slouch itself, where the writing was still funny, the writing was still good, the localization I think was still good, but all in all, I think that the remake just does an amazing job, and I think that Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door does an amazing job, and it was a treat to play from beginning to ending. And I think that that's crazy, because there's multiple times in regular RPGs where I get bored and I just don't care about certain characters or certain things, but yet this game made me do that, and I think that that is great. I think that if you are somebody that loves RPGs or even loves Mario, I think that I couldn't recommend this game enough. With all that being said, though, I am absolutely happy that I had this game to try out, and I'm happy that I decided to let myself go back to it. With that being said, let's move on to the bads. No. I refuse. There probably is something, but I don't care. So with that being said, is Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door still worth playing today? The answer is yes. And I feel very bad because I let myself miss out on a game that I absolutely love and absolutely enjoy and cannot recommend enough. Is it better than Mario RPG? I don't know. They're completely different games, and when you get in your head like that, you don't pay attention to that. You don't notice that. And that's where my issue was back in the day, and that's even where my issue was coming into it. I've heard so many people say that this game is good, and I've heard so many people say so many things, and I think that now more than ever I can completely understand why people love this game, and also why people feel the way they do about Paper Mario. And I'm a person that liked Super Paper Mario, so I feel like I understand why a lot of people are upset with the way Thousand Year Door has kind of been put in the history of Nintendo, because it feels like they don't acknowledge this one as much as they really should. And with that being said, I definitely think that this game is worth your time, especially this version. This is the more accessible version as of today. Being on the Nintendo Switch really helps this one become more accessible, and I repeat, cannot recommend this game enough. If you think that you like RPGs, Mario RPGs or whatever, this one is a great game, being my favorite, tied with Mario RPG even, and maybe even surpassing it. I don't know if I'm ready to go there yet, but with that being said, though, I've been Chris, and I'll see you guys next time here on Nostalgia Goggles. Bye!